Let's begin with something simple but powerful. The ability to decide quickly, confidently, and consistently is one of the greatest factors that separates those who succeed from those who only hope. And yet, most people hesitate. They wait, they question, they ask permission, they allow fear, doubt, or the opinions of others to drag their decision making to a halt. But hear me now. Indecision is the enemy of progress. Procrastination is its close companion. You can have the right idea. You can have a strong desire. You can have intelligence, even talent. But if you don't act, if you don't decide, you stay stuck. In the years I spent studying the most successful individuals of our time, one trait appeared again and again. They made decisions quickly, and they changed them slowly, if ever. They trusted themselves. They moved with purpose. They didn't wait to feel ready. They decided and then made the decision right through action. Compare that to the average person. Always researching, always overthinking, always waiting for the perfect time. That perfect time never comes, because the more you wait, the more resistance grows. And resistance is where dreams go to die. So let me ask you now, how many opportunities have you lost because you waited too long? How many times have you talked yourself out of something you knew you wanted? That stops here. You must learn to decide, to train your mind to say yes or no, not maybe, to trust your instincts backed by your thinking, to accept the consequences of your choices, good or bad, and keep moving. Because this is what real power looks like. Not perfection, not hesitation, but ownership. Decisiveness is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And the more you wait, the more you fear. In this chapter, I want to teach you how to break free from indecision, how to stop second-guessing yourself, how to quiet the noise of outside opinions, and how to step into the version of yourself that moves boldly. Because success isn't a reward for the hesitant. It's a response to the clear. Decide what you want. Decide how you'll go after it. And decide today that you will no longer let procrastination steal your future. That is the beginning of real power. One of the greatest enemies of decision is the influence of other people's opinions. You see it every day. Someone has a goal, a vision, a spark, and then just one voice, one comment, one raised eyebrow, and suddenly the fire goes out. It's tragic how quickly people abandon their desires because they've trained themselves to need approval. But let me be direct. If you need the world to agree with your decisions, you'll never make any that matter. The most successful people I've studied and known, they made decisions based on vision, not validation. They listened, sure. They gathered facts. They considered input. But when it came time to decide, they trusted their own judgment. You must do the same. Now, I'm not saying ignore wise counsel. I'm saying ignore the noise. There's a difference. Advice is useful when it's based on understanding, experience, and respect. But opinions? They're often cheap, emotional, and rooted in fear. People love to project their own insecurities onto your decisions. They'll tell you why it won't work, why it's risky, why it's not realistic. But here's the truth. Most of them haven't even tried. They're not builders. They're not movers. They're spectators watching from the sidelines. So why let the voice of a spectator dictate the course of your life? The moment you decide to pursue something meaningful, the critics will appear. Expect it. Prepare for it. But don't let it control you. You must build what I call decision independence, the ability to think for yourself, to weigh your options, to seek clarity, not consensus. Consensus is for committees. Decisiveness is for leaders. And you are the leader of your own life. Don't ask everyone what they think. Ask yourself what you know, what you feel, what aligns with your values, your mission, your purpose. Because in the end, you are the one who must live with the results. And when you give other people control over your choices, you also give them control over your outcomes. That is not power. That is surrender. So from this moment forward, make a commitment to filter the voices in your life. Who do you allow to speak into your decisions? Are they moving forward or standing still? Do they build or do they shrink? Protect your plan from outside interference. You don't owe explanations to people who haven't earned the right to advise you. And above all, trust that your ability to choose is a skill that sharpens with every use. No more crowdsourcing your confidence. No more waiting for permission. Decide, act, adjust if needed, but do it from your center, not from the opinions of others. That is how strong decision makers are born. Opportunity does not wait. It doesn't knock forever. It doesn't pause while you overthink. It doesn't circle back after you've hesitated too long. And yet, so many people live as if they'll get another chance, as if they have unlimited time to decide. They wait. They say, I'm not ready. I need to think about it. I'll do it later. But later becomes never. Let me say this plainly. Delay kills more dreams than failure ever will. I've seen people with brilliant ideas, powerful resources, and deep desire lose it all because they didn't act in time. They let doubt creep in. They let perfection stop progress. They wanted to be certain when what they really needed was courage. Yes, courage, because the ability to decide quickly is not a matter of intelligence. It's a matter of will. It's the willingness to move forward without full certainty, to trust yourself enough to begin, knowing you can adjust as you go. The successful people I've studied, they didn't always have perfect timing, but they had speed. They had rhythm. They saw a window and they jumped through it. They didn't get stuck in analysis. They acted, learned, and adapted. That's the formula. Decide fast. Act fast. Improve as needed. Now let me be clear. This isn't recklessness. This is practiced decisiveness. It comes from knowing what you want and being ready to move when the opportunity aligns with your mission. And the more you practice it, the sharper it becomes. You'll stop asking for signs. You'll stop needing every piece of data. You'll start trusting your ability to figure it out in motion. Because let's be honest, the perfect moment never comes. And most of the time, what you think you need, more of clarity, confidence, readiness, only comes after you move, not before. So ask yourself, what decision have I been putting off? What opportunity have I watched drift by while I waited? What excuse have I been using to stay still? If you don't answer those questions, life will answer them for you. With regret. Regret for the risk you didn't take, the idea you didn't act on, the path you were too slow to follow. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can change your pattern. You can train yourself to move with speed and precision. You can learn to trust your instincts backed by your values and your vision. Start small if you have to. Make decisions quickly in the little things. What to read, what to cut, what to commit to today. Build the habit of acting with purpose. And soon, you'll find that bigger decisions don't feel so heavy. They feel natural, because you've become a person who decides, not someday, not when it feels right, but now. That's how momentum begins. And that's how opportunity becomes reality. Let's talk about pressure, because it's easy to make decisions when everything is calm, when the stakes are low, when there's no risk, no noise, no fear. But that's not when real decisions are made. Real decisions happen in the middle of uncertainty. When you don't have all the answers, when others are watching, when the outcome matters. And in those moments, the world doesn't need your hesitation. It needs your leadership. Let me tell you what I've seen over and over again. The greatest leaders, the most successful builders, the wealthiest creators, they all share one trait in common. They can make clear decisions under pressure. They don't fold when things get intense. They don't freeze when the outcome isn't guaranteed. They don't drown in emotion. They breathe. They slow things down internally. They evaluate and then they decide. That's not natural. That's trained. And you can train it too. First, you must understand that pressure is not the enemy. It's the environment where your strength is revealed. Pressure is a test. It asks, do you really believe in what you say you want? Are you truly committed or just curious? Because anyone can dream when it's quiet, but only the committed can decide when it's loud. So how do you build that kind of resilience? Start by controlling what you can. In any pressured moment, you can control three things. Your breathing. your focus. And your story? Breathe deep and slow. It tells your nervous system you're in control. It creates space between stimulus and response. Then shift your focus. Instead of what could go wrong, ask, what must happen next? One step, one move, one decision. Then choose your story. Don't say this is too much. Say, this is where I get stronger. Don't say, I'm overwhelmed. Say, I was built for this. Because what you tell yourself in moments of pressure becomes the reality you step into. Now, does that mean you'll never feel fear? No. Fear is part of growth. But decisive people act in spite of fear. They don't wait for it to go away. They move anyway. And here's the paradox. The more you decide under pressure, the less pressure you feel next time. Because your nervous system remembers. It remembers that you didn't break, that you chose to act, that you moved when others paused. And soon pressure becomes your ally, a signal that something important is happening, a trigger for focus, not panic. Now let's address something important. You will be wrong sometimes. You will make decisions that don't work out. But that's not failure. That's refinement. You cannot let fear of being wrong keep you from being decisive. Because the person who never decides avoids mistakes but also avoids progress. You'll learn more from one committed decision than from 10 hours of indecision. And even if your decision wasn't perfect, you'll have data, momentum, experience. That's what you use to make the next decision faster, smarter, stronger. This is how confidence is built. This is how pressure becomes performance. This is how you earn the trust of others by showing you can move when it counts. So, the next time you're under pressure, don't collapse into doubt. Rise into clarity. Ask, what do I stand for? What do I know? What is the next best move I can make? Then breathe, decide, and move. Because the world doesn't need more cautious thinkers. It needs clear decision makers. And the moment you start acting like one, is the moment pressure begins to serve you. Once you've made a decision, your next challenge is commitment. Because deciding once is easy. Sticking with that decision, when it gets uncomfortable, that's where most people break. They start strong. They feel confident. Then something unexpected happens. A setback, a delay, a little criticism. And suddenly they're second guessing, rethinking, rewriting the entire plan they just committed to. But here's the truth. You cannot build anything meaningful if you keep changing direction. Every time you abandon a decision too soon, you train your mind to avoid discomfort. You reinforce the belief that hard means wrong. And that is how progress dies. Not from failure, but from inconsistency. Let me make this clear. Successful people are not always right, but they are consistent. They don't jump from one thing to the next at the first sign of resistance. They don't chase every new idea that passes by. They pick a lane and they stay in it long enough to see results. You must develop the same discipline, because the world is full of distractions. New options, new paths, shiny objects. They all seem exciting until you realize they're just different forms of the same fear. The fear of staying with something long enough to let it work. Now, I'm not saying you can't ever adjust. Of course you can. But you don't change your decision every time you feel uncomfortable. You make adjustments within the direction you've chosen. That's called refining. That's called mastery. But if you quit every time the work gets hard, you're not making strategic moves. You're running from discomfort. And discomfort is the price of growth. So here's what I want you to remember. A powerful decision is not just a yes or no. It's a commitment. It says, this is where I'm going. This is what I've chosen. And I'm willing to face whatever comes with that choice. That's strength. That's maturity. That's how leaders think. You must learn to endure uncertainty without abandoning your direction. To experience doubt without losing your grip. To hold your line even when it gets shaky. Because the reward doesn't go to the one who starts the most things. It goes to the one who finishes. And finishing requires commitment. So how do you build that? First, make fewer decisions but better ones. Stop trying to do everything. Focus on what matters. Choose it fully. Second, burn the backup plan. When you always have a way out, you'll use it. Third, remind yourself daily why you decided in the first place. What was the vision, the goal, the desire? Reconnect with that. It will strengthen your resolve. And fourth, track progress, not perfection. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to keep moving forward. Momentum is built on trust. And trust is built every time you keep a promise to yourself, especially when it's hard. So today, recommit to something. Draw the line. Say, this is what I'm doing, and I'm doing it all the way. Because once you become the kind of person who follows through, your results start to multiply. Your confidence grows. And the world begins to see you as someone who gets things done. And that is a reputation worth building. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. Indecision is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's a habit. And like every habit, it can be broken. But only if you face it head on. So many people say, that's just how I am. I overthink, I take my time. But what they're really saying is, I've practiced hesitation for so long it feels normal. But here's the problem. Every time you delay a decision you should make now, you reinforce the pattern. You teach your brain that it's safer to wait than to move. And you trade clarity for comfort. But the comfort doesn't last. Because behind indecision lives regret. The regret of missed chances. The regret of unexplored paths. The regret of becoming someone who never quite moved. That regret is heavy. But there's good news. Just like indecision is a habit, so is decisiveness. It's a muscle you can train. Not by making massive life-altering decisions every day, but by practicing small, clear choice over and over again. You start with the little things. What will I focus on today? What will I stop tolerating? What needs to be cut, finished, or started? You train yourself to choose with speed and confidence, to trust your judgment, to act without waiting for approval. And every time you do, you create a new pattern. You send a new signal to your subconscious. I am someone who moves. I am someone who decides. And soon, that becomes your default. Now here's what I want you to understand. You will never eliminate all uncertainty. You will never have 100% of the facts. You will never feel completely ready. But that's not the goal. The goal is not perfection. The goal is movement, progress, direction, action. That's what separates the builders from the watchers, the achievers from the wishers. So let me give you something practical. Set a time limit on your decisions. If something matters, don't give yourself a week to decide. Give yourself an hour, a day, a window, because deadlines create action, and action creates results. Next, stop asking 10 people for their opinion. Ask one trusted source if you must, but then decide. Too much input leads to confusion, and confusion breeds inaction. Third, accept the risk. Every decision carries some risk, but so does standing still. You're not trying to eliminate all risk. You're trying to manage it, move through it, and learn from it. And finally, celebrate the fact that you chose, even if the result isn't perfect. You moved, you committed. You showed yourself that your word has weight. That matters more than the outcome, because over time, decisive action compounds. It builds momentum. It builds credibility. It builds a life you chose step by step, not one you drifted into. So if you've been stuck in the loop of indecision, it's time to break it. Start with one clear move. Do it today. Do it fast. And do it fully. Because every bold future starts with a single decision. And know it's your move. Let's talk about something few people ever question. The influence of your environment on your decision making. You may think you make your own choices, that you think for yourself, that your decisions are yours and yours alone. But I challenge you to look closer. Because for most people, the fear of judgment is stronger than the desire for success. They don't decide boldly because they're afraid of what someone else will think, afraid to look foolish, afraid to be different, afraid to stand out. But let me say this clearly. You cannot create a powerful life while trying to please a passive crowd. If you surround yourself with indecisive people, you'll begin to mirror their hesitation. If you spend time with critics, you'll become afraid of risk. If you listen to small minds, your vision will shrink to match their comfort zone. And that comfort zone is a cage. It may feel safe, but it keeps you quiet when you should speak. It keeps you still when you should move. It keeps you average when you were built to lead. So how do you break free? First, become aware of who's influencing your choices. When you hesitate on a decision, ask yourself, is this really my voice or is it someone else's? Whose opinion am I carrying right now? Who am I trying to protect, impress, or avoid upsetting? You'll be shocked at how often your thoughts have been shaped by people who don't even live your life. Second, take inventory of your circle. Do the people around you take action? Do they support movement? Do they encourage clarity or confusion? If not, it's time to shift the circle. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you must start elevating your exposure. Spend time with decisive thinkers. Read the words of builders. Listen to those who act with purpose. Because decisiveness is contagious, so is doubt. Next, be willing to be misunderstood. The bolder your decisions, the more likely someone will question them. Let them. Your life is not a community project. You are not required to explain your every step. You do not owe consensus. What you owe is alignment with your values, your vision, your calling. And finally, build internal authority. Learn to trust your own reasoning. Learn to trust your own gut. Learn to stand tall in your choices, even when no one claps. Because in the end, you will live with the results. Not your friends, not your coworkers, not the crowd. You? And that's why you must take back the power. Decide for you. Move for you. Choose the life that reflects your standards, not their fears. And when you do, when you consistently act from internal clarity instead of external pressure, something amazing happens. You stop apologizing for being decisive. You stop shrinking your vision to fit in. You stop second-guessing every move. And you start leading. Quietly, boldly, powerfully. So if you want to grow, if you want to live by decision, not reaction, start by upgrading the voices you allow near your goals. Because not everyone's opinion deserves a seat at your decision table. Let's talk about responsibility. Because every powerful decision comes with a cost, the cost of ownership. And most people avoid that cost. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be blamed. They don't want to feel the weight of their own choices. So what do? They wait. They delay. They ask for more input, more opinions, more time. But deep down, they're not looking for clarity. They're looking for someone else to carry the consequences. And that, my friend, is where greatness dies. Because you cannot hold power in one hand and hand off responsibility with the other. If you want to lead, if you want to build, if you want to grow, you must take full ownership of your choices, good or bad. Because here's the paradox. Responsibility doesn't limit your freedom. It multiplies it. When you take full responsibility for your decisions, you free yourself from blame. You stop pointing fingers. You stop waiting for rescue. You stop saying, well, if only they had done this. Instead, you say, this is mine. I chose this. I will respond. And that is the mindset of a builder, of a leader, of someone who shapes the future instead of reacting to it. Now, does this mean you'll always get it right? Of course not. But when you own your path, you can correct your course. You don't waste time defending your ego. You don't pretend something is working when it's not. You adjust, you grow, you move forward, because the goal is not to be perfect. It's to be responsible. Now let's take this further. Responsibility gives your decisions weight. When you know you can't pass the blame, you make better choices. You think longer, you act with more care. You become more intentional, and with that comes respect. Not just from others, but from yourself. You start to believe in your own leadership because you've proven you can handle what comes with it. So how do you build that? Start by removing the language of escape. No more maybe. No more we'll see. No more if it doesn't work, I'll just quit. Replace it with I've decided. I own this. I'll figure it out. Next, when a decision doesn't go as planned, don't retreat into excuses. Say what went wrong. Learn, adjust, move, own the result, and then own the next step. You'll find that this level of responsibility creates clarity. It removes the fog. It strengthens your posture. It earns the trust of those around you, because people follow leaders who carry weight, not ones who pass it off. And most importantly, you'll begin to trust yourself on a new level, not because everything worked perfectly, but because you stayed at the wheel. Through every storm, every wrong turn, every unexpected detour. That is the path to mastery. So if you've been hesitating, ask yourself, is it the decision you fear or the responsibility that comes with it? And if it's the latter, then hear me now. You are strong enough to carry it. You are capable enough to own it. You are ready enough to decide and lead, because that's what this life demands of those who want to live fully. Ownership, responsibility, and the courage to keep choosing your path, one decision at a time. Big decisions get all the attention. The move across the country, the leap into business, the moment you say yes to something life-changing. But let me tell you a secret. The big decisions aren't what shape your destiny. It's the small ones made quietly, daily, repeatedly. You don't build strength by lifting a mountain. You build it by lifting something small over and over until the heavy things become possible. And decision-making works the same way. You train yourself to be decisive not by waiting for major moments, but by owning the little ones. What time do you wake up? What do you say yes to? What do you cut out that no longer serves you? How do you treat your focus, your time, your energy? These are not random choices. These are bricks. Each one stacks on top of the last until one day you've built a foundation of clarity, conviction, and character. But most people never notice. They underestimate the power of daily decisions. They say things like, it's just 5 more minutes of sleep. It's just one skipped workout. It's just one distraction. But nothing is just one thing. Because every choice casts a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. You're always becoming something. There is no neutral. Every day, your decisions say, I move toward discipline, or I move toward delay. I honor my values, or I sell them for comfort. I'm in charge, or I'm drifting again. And the good news? You don't need a perfect day. You just need one good decision at a time. That's it. One small, clear, honest move that builds your momentum. And here's where the magic happens. The more small decisions you make with intention, the faster the big ones come into focus. You stop hesitating when opportunities show up, because you've already trained your mind to move, to act, to trust your own voice. And when the stakes are high, you don't fold. You've been here before thousands of times, not with big, loud choices, but with the quiet ones no one saw you make. And let me be clear, you will not always feel motivated. You will not always feel certain. You will have days when you doubt, delay, and stumble. That's normal. But the question isn't, will I fall? It's, will I keep deciding? Will I keep getting back in the game? Will I keep choosing the path I committed to, even when it's hard? That is how leaders are made. Not by one bold moment, but by 1,000 small decisions that no one applauds. So, if you've been waiting for some big turning point, here it is. Decide something small, today, right now, and follow through. Then do it again tomorrow. Stack the days. Stack the wins. Stack the identity of someone who acts with purpose. And you'll wake up one day realizing you've become exactly the kind of person you once thought you had to wait to be. You don't have to wait anymore. Decide. Now we bring it all together. We've talked about the danger of hesitation, the cost of delay, the weight of outside influence, and the power of responsibility. But here's what it all leads to. You must become a person of decision, not just once, not just when it's easy. Every day, in every area, with every part of who you are, because nothing in your life will change until you decide that it must. No amount of wishing, hoping, or dreaming can take the place of a committed decision. Desire opens the door, but decision walks through it. And the moment you choose, truly choose, you stop being a spectator. You become a builder. You stop reacting. You start leading. You stop asking, what should I do? And start saying, this is what I'm doing, and I'll see it through. That shift changes everything, because decision creates energy. It creates movement. It creates momentum that no amount of planning ever will. People say they're stuck. They're not stuck. They're undecided. They haven't drawn the line. They haven't made the call. They're still waiting for clarity when clarity only comes after commitment. So now the question becomes, do you live this way? How do you become someone who chooses powerfully and lives by that choice? Let me give you a blueprint. First, know what you want. This sounds simple, but most people have never taken the time to ask, what do I truly want? What would success look like on my terms? Not what others expect what I choose. Second, make aligned decisions. If something doesn't move you toward that vision, you don't need it. Not in your habits, not in your schedule, not in your circle. You don't have to be ruthless with people, but you must be ruthless with your standards. Third, shorten the gap between thought and action. If you feel pulled towards something, move. Make the call, send the message, test the idea. Don't let momentum die in delay. Speed is power when it's aligned with purpose. Fourth, build a system for follow-through. It's not enough to decide. You must execute. Block the time, track the steps. Keep promises to yourself like your future depends on it, because it does. Fifth, review and refine. You won't get every decision right. That's not the point. The point is to keep learning, keep adjusting, and never stop owning the outcome. Because that's what real decision makers do. They don't hide. They don't blame. They don't drift. They lead. And finally, never forget, every major transformation in your life will begin with a single choice. A moment when you say, I'm done waiting. I'm done doubting. I'm done letting fear make my decisions for me. From this day forward, you decide. You decide who you are. You decide what matters. You decide what you're willing to build, endure, and become. And if you do that, consistently, relentlessly, and without apology, there is no limit to what you can create, because you won't be hoping anymore. You'll be deciding. And that is where your real power begins.